The Adidas Evo SL versus the Nike Pegasus Plus. Two shoes that are remarkably similar but have one massive difference, and that difference will determine which one you prefer. In my mind, in early 2025, these are the two most interesting shoes in running right now. They're both rather simple, almost minimalist performance trainers with very simple uppers, the brand's super foam in the midsole with no stiffening agents, so no plates, no rods, no carrier foams, so you're getting a pure experience of the brand's top racing super foam in a very lightweight, very performance-oriented trainer that will tick a lot of boxes for a lot of runners in a running shoe rotation. And starting with the specs of these two shoes, this is where you can really see the key difference between them. And no, it's not the stack height. Even though the Adidas Evo SL has almost a full centimeter more stack height than the Nike Pegasus Plus, that's not the key difference here. The drop of these two shoes is different in spec, but on foot, they actually feel remarkably similar. They both feel lower than they actually are. And while the Adidas Evo SL is a little lighter than the Nike Pegasus Plus, I would say on foot, you also won't notice that difference. The ride profiles of both these shoes, I think, represent the brand's super foam characteristic, which makes sense because you're getting a very pure experience of the brand's super foam in both these shoes. For the Adidas Evo SL, you're getting a very springy ride. That springiness is really a hallmark of Lightstrike Pro Classic, the foam that was found in the Adios Pro 3 and the older generation of Adios Pros and Adizero shoes. Whereas in the Nike Pegasus Plus, you're getting a full ZoomX experience, that very resilient sink and then push out feel that's very quintessential to ZoomX. But neither one of those are the difference. The difference is the geometry, and you can really see that clearly when these shoes are head to head. The Adidas Evo SL has a very rockered, modern geometry, where the Nike Pegasus Plus has a very traditional, flatter geometry. And that is the key difference between these two shoes. Moving to the contact patch and outsole of these two shoes, you can see from a dimension standpoint, they're actually rather similar, though the Nike Pegasus Plus does have a narrower midfoot, but that's just a Nike hallmark that they typically do with a lot of their performance shoes. But otherwise, dimensions are very similar. There is a key difference that you can see here. The widest point of the Nike Pegasus Plus is actually behind the ball of the foot, where the widest point in the Adidas Evo SL is right under the ball of the foot. And that has a significant difference in the ride. The Adidas Evo SL uses the rocker to propel you forward, where in the more traditional geometry of the Nike Pegasus Plus, having the big chunk of foam behind the ball of the foot actually gives you more spring in that traditional geometry. They get to the same end, they just get there in very different ways. And again, that's going to be a preference that's going to determine which one of these is right for you. Starting with the uppers of these two shoes, they're both rather minimalist uppers. Very lightweight, very simple uppers. I actually really like the textiles of both these uppers, though I like this upper on the Nike Pegasus Plus much more. This is a classic Nike Flyknit upper, like old school Flyknit. If you ever ran in Flyknit, you just know how compliant and nice that wraps around the foot. It's almost sock-like, holds your foot in. It's just a really good fit. I do really like the textile that's in the Evo SL. It's a refinement of the older textiles that Adidas has been using in Adizero shoes for a couple of years now. This is probably the best execution of it, but the one problem with it is the forefoot volume below the eyelet chain to the toes. There's just too much volume, so you get a very baggy fit around the toes and the forefoot in the Evo SL, whereas the fit in the Nike Pegasus Plus is really streamlined and really wraps around your foot beautifully. And getting into the fit and sizing of these two shoes, and starting with the Nike Pegasus Plus, I'm going to say that this is a true to size US men's size 9 for me, the size that I wear in every Nike shoe, and out of the box, the fit of this shoe was nearly perfect for me. It is a little bit of a pointy shoe, so you do have more room in front of your toes, but otherwise with the Flyknit upper, this shoe just has been an exceptional fit from the first time I put them on my foot. And true to size is definitely my recommendation for this shoe. Whereas with the Adidas Evo SL, I originally bought a true to size US men's size 9, which is what I wear in almost all Adizero shoes, and I found the fit worked quite well, but like I pointed out, it was just too baggy in the forefoot. I want a more performance fit in a shoe like this, a performance trainer. So I actually went down half a size to 8.5, which is what this shoe is, and that gave me a better fit, a tighter fit in the midfoot, took some of the volume out in the forefoot, but it's still not the perfect fit that I want. So my recommendation for sizing and fit of the Adidas Evo SL is, if you want a true training fit, go true to size. If you want this for more performance, I would go down half a size, but I would also check to make sure there's enough length for your toes. If there is, that's probably going to be the better fit. Moving to the midsole of these two shoes and starting with the Nike Pegasus Plus, this is ZoomX foam. However, I don't think it's the same formula of ZoomX that's in the Nike Alphafly 3 or Vaporfly 3. I've always referred to this version of ZoomX as the more rubberized ZoomX. However, you still get the same resilience, you still get the same performance of this foam, just in a much more durable foam that's better for training. That's why we've seen this in the Streakfly 1, we've seen this in the Invincible 1, 2, and 3. This is kind of the training variant of ZoomX foam, but you still get all of the performance. And given that this is a trainer, it makes sense that it's in this shoe. You get that sink on initial foot strike, which is something that if you've ever run in ZoomX, you understand. But since there is such a low stack in this shoe, you're not getting a lot of it, and you get a nice resilient sort of bounce out of the forefoot of the shoe. I've found almost endless performance in this shoe, and I actually really love it for really fast running, interval type running, because this midsole just works so exceptionally well for me for that type of running. But moving to the Adidas Evo SL, this is, as I pointed out, Lightstrike Pro, what I call classic. This is the older Lightstrike Pro that was found in the Adios Pro 3 and really all the previous generations of Adizero shoes. This is not the same foam that's in the Adios Pro 4 or the Adios 9, the softer new Lightstrike Pro. But the characteristics of this foam is a very sudden energy return. You strike the ground and almost instantly you're sprung up. That very springy ride that people love about Lightstrike Pro. This being such a pure example of that gives you a very sudden and very dynamic ride. You put the forefoot rocker in this shoe and you're just getting a very springy, very propulsive ride. This shoe is dynamic, it's fun. It can be a bit of a handful, but that's what makes this shoe fun. It's a little bit all over the place sometimes, but again, if you can control that, this is a really fast shoe that gives you a very modern ride and a very distinctly different ride than this shoe, the Nike Pegasus Plus. But together, I think both these shoes give you a full range of running performance. And the best way for me to illustrate that is with my performance matrix. So if we take the Evo SL and the Pegasus Plus and we put them on here and we start with the Adidas Evo SL, as you can see, there's basically full coverage of the entire matrix from the Evo SL. However, the red or orange area is really the sweet spot. This is a shoe that likes to be in threshold, around marathon pace. It just wants to sit in there, tick over after mile, kilometer after kilometer, and it just does that really well. However, it does do the other ends of the spectrum. On the max effort side, it is a really fast shoe. However, because of all the rocker and me being a higher cadence runner, I just don't like a shoe with a lot of rocker for that type of running. On the lower end, because it is so propulsive, there is so much rocker, the shoe wants to go fast, it's a shoe you're going to be constantly fighting to go easy. So it's not the best easy run shoe. However, if we put the Pegasus Plus on here, you can see that it covers exactly the same range. Now, I've shown the Pegasus Plus in my performance matrix a little bit, and it was essentially this same scale, except I've now moved it back into easy a little bit because I've warmed up to the Pegasus Plus as an easy run daily trainer. I actually think it works quite well for that. Initially, I didn't like it as much for that. But the real sweet spot of the shoe is in that threshold running. This is a shoe that wants to tick over mile after mile, kilometer after kilometer around marathon pace. And when I'm really picking up pace and doing true speed work, and I'm talking faster than 5K running, because it's a more traditional geometry, it doesn't have all of that rocker in the forefoot, it's a shoe I like much better for that type of running because I feel like it allows me to run the way I want to run. And that final point really is the tangible difference in the geometry of these two shoes. With the Adidas Evo SL, since this is a modern rocker geometry, this is a shoe that's going to constantly roll you or propel you forward. Whereas with the Nike Pegasus Plus, since it's a traditional geometry, this is a shoe that you're much more in control of how you want to run in this. You want to go easy, you want to go fast, that's on you. Whereas with the Adidas Evo SL, this shoe just constantly wants to roll and propel you forward. So for faster running, it does really well until you get to something that's really fast, where for me as a high cadence runner, it feels like I'm going to trip over the rocker in this shoe. And if I'm trying to go slower or easy, this is a shoe that constantly wants me to be going faster, so I'm constantly fighting it. I don't have that issue here, and that's the preference that I have between these two shoes. So what is the verdict here? Which one of these two shoes do I prefer? Well, I'm going to go with the Nike Pegasus Plus for the mere fact that I like a more traditional geometry shoe for training. I want to be able to dictate my own pace. I don't want the shoe forcing me to run any specific way. However, I do acknowledge that I think most people are going to prefer the Adidas Evo SL, and I think this is probably the shoe I'd recommend for more runners because it has the higher stack, it has more cushion, and has that modern geometry that I think most people are looking for. So this is probably going to be the crowd favorite, where I think this is the shoe that I'm generally going to reach for most types of running in this performance trainer category. But, and there's always a but with me, I think if you like this type of simple, almost minimalist performance trainer, you owe it to yourself to actually have both of these shoes, because I think they complement each other really well in an overall training rotation. Now, if I'm going to go do a workout that has longer reps, a rep that's no shorter than 1K, but probably more like a 2-mile rep, even a 5K rep, I'm going to reach for the Adidas Evo SL because the higher stack, the resilience of the foam, and the rocker is going to be much more similar to the super shoe that I'm racing in than this shoe. Though I've done a lot of that work in the Pegasus Plus, and this shoe is very fast, very comfortable for that type of work. I've compared data of the Pegasus Plus to something like a Vaporfly or an Alphafly, and this shoe isn't any less fast for me than that, especially in a workout scenario. But I think now that this shoe exists, this is the one I'm going to reach for. However, if I'm doing speed work, like true speed work, whether it's on a road or track, and I'm talking faster than 5K running, this is the shoe I'm going to reach for. I've done plenty of track workouts in this shoe, and I've done plenty of shorter, say 400, 800 reps on the road in this shoe. And the more traditional geometry of this shoe and the ability for me to feel the energy transfer and feel the ground when I'm striking around because of the lower stack height in this shoe is going to give me more of a training stimulus of what I want in that type of running. So I'm going to use these two shoes in conjunction for an overall training rotation, and I'm really excited that I actually have both of them to build a full rotation with. I actually have a lot more thoughts on these two shoes and overall this category of shoes, this minimalist super foam performance trainer category. So in the coming weeks to months, there'll be additional content on this channel talking about how to use specifically these two shoes in rotation building, but also where I think this category of shoes has come from, why, and where it's probably headed. Thank you for making it to the end of the video. If you find this content useful, consider subscribing. You'll see more content from me pop up in your feed. If not, drop a like on this video because it helps this channel continue to grow, which I always appreciate. And with that, I'll catch you in the next one.